is the hypomania or mania. Sometimes if someone feels anxious or revved up, they may question if they're manic. But mania really is, it probably is best to think of it more as, I call it, oh, sorry, I got a feedback there. You know what, let me take off my ear pods.
Okay. Whatever's easiest.
Yeah. There, maybe that's better.
You sound great.
Okay, great. Now you sound great too. I was hearing myself talk back to myself. Okay, so where did I leave off? I call mania.
Oh, now we lost you. It might have picked up your headphones again. I don't know if you put them in the case, they might disconnect or something. I don't know. Let's see. The joys of Zoom. Luckily, in today's world, everybody understands these tech difficulties. This video is going to be recorded, edited, and made available in the MedCircle library at watch.medcircle.com. Let's see if we have sound now, Dr. Marks.
You have me back now?
Oh yeah, sound great.
Okay, great. Yeah, before the pandemic, this would be very looked down upon, but now everybody understands. Yeah. All right. So with mania, you have these discrete episodes where you're really tuned up, as I guess we call it hyper arousal, but arousal sounds like, what does that really mean? But so you have more energy, your thoughts are usually are moving faster, you have a decreased need for sleep. So it's not as though you just have trouble sleeping because you're worried about something that's coming up tomorrow, like you might experience with anxiety. But with mania, you have a decreased need for sleep. So you may be up doing stuff and then you just happen to look at the clock and it's 3 a.m. I got to get up at 6, so I better go to bed. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you can be moving so fast that you can start to lose touch with reality. So sometimes people will become delusional and start thinking things that aren't real, or having these big ideas that like they're going to save the world and they have this special power to do that, and et cetera, et cetera. So those episodes can be very destructive. People can end up, because you lose your judgment as well. So people can like clean out their bank account or make decisions that are very, that have a lot of consequences after the fact. Mm-hmm. One of the differences between hypomania and mania, sometimes it's not always easy to tell the difference between hypomania and mania, and there's kind of a gray area in between. But generally with hypomania, it's not as intense and it doesn't last as long. So, or excuse me, it may last a little bit longer, but at a lower intensity. So if you become psychotic or delusional, and another way that could look is someone might feel like they're getting special messages from the television to start this business. That is definitely mania. But short of that, it's really about a degree of dysfunction that it's causing you.
Mm-hmm. We are getting loaded here with questions from our viewers watching on Zoom. So I want to get right into those, but to answer a reoccurring question, yes, this video will be uploaded and made available to you at watch.medcircle.com. Let's go to our first question. This MedCircle member is asking, can complex post-traumatic stress disorder be misdiagnosed as bipolar 1?
Good question. It shouldn't be misdiagnosed as bipolar 1 because with complex PTSD, that is more of a disturbance in, that has more of an effect on your personality, the way you respond to life, to people, the kinds of relationships that you have, because of the series of traumas that you experience starting at an early age, it affects your development. And so you may be more sensitive to comments that people make, or you can also have an overlying depression on top of the the complex PTSD. But the complex PTSD affects more the way you interact with people and how you feel about yourself. As I mentioned, with mania, you've got this it has a certain look to it with the way that it's the way you're behaving, and it's short-lived, whereas complex PTSD is more something that runs in the background and will be present whether you're in a depressive episode or a manic episode or not.
Excellent. Really, really clear and well said. Thank you for that. Our next question is from a MedCircle member asking, how can one distinguish between borderline personality disorder and bipolar disorder? And a big question, can you have both?
So yes, you can have both. It's not always that easy to distinguish between the two because of the fact that there are a lot of overlapping symptoms. So someone with borderline personality disorder can have, or a typical characteristic of it is mood instability. So you can have ups, you can have downs, you can feel very low. And usually these ups and downs, though, are shorter lived, meaning they can fluctuate over the course of the day. Whereas with bipolar disorder, you have these episodes that last longer than just a few hours over the course of the day. So a depression is not even really considered depression unless you have it for at least 2 weeks. And with hypomania and mania, it's 4 days to a week of symptoms. So that's one of the main determining factors in telling the difference between mood, we call it lability, of being very reactive. So mood reactivity that changes and fluctuates throughout the day versus these episodes of a depressed state versus a manic or hypomanic state. And then with borderline personality, and so yes, you can have both, and it often, in a term that's sometimes used for that, is border polar. When someone has a combination, it's a made up term, so it's not an official term, but some people will use that term, and it does make it harder to treat both disorders. And what it means, though, is that you have to treat both separately. So with bipolar disorder, being very in touch and in tune with your medication management. And then with borderline personality disorder, the main treatment for that is dialectical behavior therapy, but there are some other therapies for it. But also at the same time getting treatment for that, because the medications for bipolar disorder are not going to address how you respond to life, whether you feel empty and how you feel about yourself and those sort of things.
Really well said. I had never heard of border, what did you call it again? Border disorder?
Border polar.
Border,
it's hard to say. Border polar. Border polar, yeah.
Sammy Grimm is a patient with lived experience for borderline personality disorder. She was misdiagnosed twice with bipolar disorder, put on meds for years. It was really difficult for her. We have a great series on that on YouTube. It's available for free. I know we have a lot of MedCircle members here. Thank you for being here. If you're brand new, I'm Kyle Kittleson. I'm the host at MedCircle, and we offer video series and live interviews with psychologists and psychiatrists, just like Dr. Tracey Marks. If you have not heard of us or want to try us out, I invite you to try us out for free for a week. Give us a shot. You can start your free trial at watch.medcircle.com or medcircle.com. And if you use the code IGOTTHIS25, I think Bridget will put it in the chat, you can get 25% off your first month. We are a mental health education platform, and we are so thrilled that you're here today. Dr. Marks, let's go to our next question. This question is from MedCircle member asking, can medication stop a manic episode coming on, or do you gotta ride it out?
Oh, medication can definitely stop a manic episode coming on. In fact, the best thing you can do is keep up with your early signs. We'll sometimes refer to them as a prodrome of signs, that after a while, when you start to get a pattern to your illness, starting to see things that you start doing or start happening before you really either go into mania or depression. So a classic or a common thing with that might be decreased need for sleep. So you notice that you usually get 6 or 7 hours. Now you're starting to only sleep 3 or 4. That might be the beginning of a manic episode coming. That would be the time to contact your doctor about either having something added or having something increased. Some of the medicines that tend to be very good at putting water on the fire, as I call it, are things like Zyprexa or olanzapine is the generic name for that. Quetiapine is another one, also called Seroquel. Both of them are very sedating. So they're very good at just kind of quickly nipping things in the bud.
As a reminder, MedCircle is not a treatment or therapy provider or referral service. MedCircle live sessions in this class is for educational purposes only. Our next question is asking, is bipolar type 1 solely genetic or caused by environmental factors, or is it a mixture of both?
Very good question. So we believe that bipolar disorder, as we use that term, is solely genetic. However, and I hesitate when I say that because not everyone has a genetic link that's recognizable. So people can develop bipolar disorder and never have had anyone in their family have it. But there are things that can cause mania or depression symptoms like steroid use, if you got prescribed steroids for some inflammatory problem that you have, or a head injury or things. And in that case, we don't call it bipolar disorder. It's called a mood disorder due to whatever the medical condition that you have. So medical conditions, hyperthyroidism, if you have an overactive thyroid, that can produce symptoms that look like mania because it can rev you up. We would call that a mood disorder due to hyperthyroidism, for example.
You know what I like about you, Dr. Marks, is you just talk to me like we're friends, like we're on the same level, you know? Like you just tell me, not as a doctor, like speaking, you know, to me in complicated terms. I feel like you're just my friend who's really educated on this. It's very good.
Well, good. I'm glad. I guess I'm just so used to talking to patients all the time. I mean, I'm still in practice. So I'm always in the habit of kind of trying to explain things to people. So I'm glad you feel that way.
Deep topic. Let's go to our next question. This person says, I have atypical bipolar disorder. And because I don't fit in the traditional criterias, doctors disregard my symptoms or attribute them to other things. How is it looking for the education of psychiatrists around the world in knowing and diagnosing bipolar spectrum disorders that are not simply bipolar 1 and bipolar 2? Dr. Marks.
Yeah, so that's kind of a new trend as far as looking at bipolar disorder as more of a bipolar spectrum disorder. So currently now it is still bipolar disorder, unipolar depression. But there's still a segment of people who believe that we should not have changed the name back in 1980 when it went from manic depressive illness to bipolar disorder. And some of the things that make us, I guess I'm in that faction of people who believe that, but make us think that I believe that it's not a good description, bipolar disorder. I'm more for the spectrum illness.
Okay, good to know. All right, cool.
Because of things like anxious depression, it's called depression with anxious distress, can look very much like a mixed bipolar episode where you have a mixture of depression and mania at the same time. There's just kind of this middle group of people who it's not that just have this mixture of symptoms, for lack of a better word, that look like they still behave at some point with having mania at some point or hypomania, but then this other thing that's not quite pure depression, it's somewhere in the middle. What does that end up all meaning? In the end, the main thing it affects is the treatment as far as the medication that's used, because in general, antidepressants are not recommended for bipolar disorder. It is one of the things that can make people slip into a mixed episode, can also make you switch back and forth and rapid cycle. So in general, it's considered disruptive and not recommended, but there are some cases where people won't respond well enough to multiple mood stabilizers for their depression and just have to have an antidepressant, even if it's just for a short period of time. So that's kind of where it makes the difference as to what are we actually treating here? Are we treating a pure depression that will never have any mania or hypomanic qualities to it? Or are we treating what is currently depression, but it's going to become something else later? And as far as education, I think that I'm a long way from my residency, but there's lots more research and current education on looking at bipolar disorder differently. There's lots of emerging research on bipolar disorder. There's a lot we don't understand about it.
Yeah. We have a poll up for our members watching us live on Zoom. If you don't mind answering that poll, it helps us create new content. I'm seeking bipolar disorder education for, and then you just click the one that you're seeking it for. Dr. Marks, you can just, pick one.
Oh, okay. I was about to put on the glasses so I could see. Okay.
I'm seeking education for myself. Okay. So we'll share those results in just a little bit. Our next question is from MedCircle member asking, is being on the bipolar spectrum always a lifelong condition you have to manage with medication, or can it be overcome like some people with unipolar depression?
It is not something that can be cured in the sense, I know that you didn't say cured, but that's what I mean by overcome, but cured in the sense that it goes away and you never have it again, but it doesn't have to necessarily be managed by medication for your entire life, all of your life. So there are things that can really help with bipolar disorder and help prevent people from having episodes, or at least lessen the severity of them. And some of those things are what's called social rhythm therapy, where you are having a structured routine and schedule. And some of the things, and that really does make a big difference. It seems really basic, but it really makes a big difference to stay on a set schedule.
Therapy, I'm right.
Yeah, it's called social rhythm therapy. And so what it does is there's a social rhythm metric, SRM-5 it's called, where you keep these kind of 5 things the same. The time that you get out of bed, not pop your eyes open awake, but you actually get out of bed, the time you have your first contact with someone, which may not always be controllable, especially if you live alone. The first time that you start either work, school, or some activity, the time you have dinner, and then the time you go to bed. If you can kind of keep those times within a reasonable amount of, if you can keep those the same time within reason, doesn't have to be exact time, it's been shown to really improve outcomes with bipolar disorder, outcomes being less episodes, more time in between episodes. So that said, if you're someone who may have one episode, either depression or mania, once a year, well, potentially you could go a chunk of time with no medications, but still in treatment with your doctor, looking for another episode coming so you can jump on it. So in theory, there could be times where you don't take any medication. I have patients who I've been following for 20 years, and they've had times where, earlier on, they may have had episode back to back to back to back, couple of hospitalizations, and then things just kind of get quiet and drop off. Now, it could be because they stayed on medication, or it could be because the illness itself is not as active, kind of like a volcano going into hibernation. So I think that I do think there are things that you can do health-wise, like the social rhythm therapy, but also in terms of a healthy diet and eating clean, eliminating preservatives. I saw an article talking about the cured meats triggering mania. So also nutritional psychiatry is an area that's kind of evolving as well, of just how much food impacts your illness. So I do think there are other things that you could do to help keep off or keep back the illness.
Incredible and really fascinating. We have the results of that poll. 47% of you said you're seeking bipolar disorder education for yourself. Right after that, for your job, we have a lot of professionals and students in here. Really fascinating. Thank you for that information. I was going to say something. Oh, let's share Dr. Marks's YouTube channel. That's what I was going to say. So in the chat right now, Bridget will be sharing the link to Dr. Tracey Marks's YouTube channel. That's how I first discovered her. Phenomenal resource, great videos, both. You know how sometimes you watch mental health videos and you're like, oh God, this is so boring, but I need the information. You don't have to worry about that. She's very pleasant, very accommodating, and it's great information. So make sure you go subscribe and turn on those notifications for her YouTube channel. Let's go to our next question. Is it normal to experience ongoing fatigue with bipolar 1, even when not experiencing depression?
Wow, ongoing fatigue. So my thought about that would be, I'd have a lot of follow-up questions, but so some scenarios where you could have fatigue is, my first thought would be, is it medication related? So, most times people remain on medication in between episodes. So is it a side effect of your medication? That would be my first thought. Also, it's fairly common to have co-occurring abnormalities in your thyroid functioning, even if it's not to the point where it's considered hyperthyroid or hypothyroid. But people with bipolar disorder tend to be more sensitive to even small changes in thyroid functioning. So even if your thyroid is technically normal because it's in the range, but if it's at the low end of the range, it can still bring you down and make you feel similar to being depressed. And similarly, if it's too high. So sometimes your doctor may want to supplement you with thyroid medication, even if it's technically normal, but if it's at the low end of normal that way. Outside of that, I would look at things like diet influencing your overall energy level. But yeah, my first thought would be a medication side effect, if that's applicable.
What's the youngest person you've diagnosed with any type of bipolar?
Well, I don't treat children, so I only treat adults. So, but as far as me having experience knowing someone who's been treated or diagnosed, I'd say maybe like 11, 12 years old, but we think of childhood bipolar disorders going down as low as 8, 10, and some people even kind of question 8. So it can start pretty early.
Understood. Our next question is from a MedCircle member asking, can anxious depression be misdiagnosed or can anxious depression or having depression with a lot of nervous energy be misdiagnosed as bipolar 2?
Yes, it can be misdiagnosed as bipolar 2 as far as the increased energy or especially if your anxiety manifests with a lot of physical nervousness or physical anxiety symptoms like heart racing, trouble feeling like maybe you're coming out of your skin, versus worrying type of anxiety. So worrying type of anxiety is different from mania. So with the mania or hypomania, and this hypomania for bipolar 2, again, we're talking about it being a physical revving up that has other consequences like making you think fast, making you not sleep, impairing your judgment, et cetera. So So yes, I do think people who have an anxious depression, um, especially with all of the online education and information about bipolar disorder, I think there are lots of people who just maybe as a knee-jerk believe anything that looks odd or, hyped up must be hypomania, and it's not always hypomania.
We at the end of this session, I don't want to use Dr. Marks's time, of course, but at the end of this, anyone who would like to stay on and get a tour of MedCircle, what we offer, I will be doing that. You don't have to stay on, but if you're interested in that, we will be doing that at the end of this session. Our next question is asking, do you have any advice regarding brain fog? I need this, Dr. Marks, and cognitive deficits found in bipolar disorder?
So this is a tough one because there's lots of contributing factors to this. So some of it is going back to medication effect, which is tough because if the medication is keeping you stable, what do you do about it if it's making you also think slower? So the first answer is taking a look at the medications that you're on. If you are in a period of maintenance, trying to come off as many as possible. Typically, the antipsychotics that we use to treat bipolar disorder have a lot of these side effects as well, but Lamictal can also cause the brain fog. There's a push now toward de-prescribing, we call it, of kind of getting people down to the bare bones that they can take just to minimize side effects. Okay, so that's one answer to that question. Sleep deprivation or poor sleep habits can also affect your thought processing, and it can affect it a lot. And it's very typical for someone with bipolar disorder to have a very poor sleep schedule. Kind of goes back to the social rhythm therapy thing of getting structure and routine in your life so that you have a regular, your body clock kind of functions the way that it's supposed to. Exercise definitely improves alertness and mood, as well as your thinking and your ability to problem solve and all of that. Those would be the things that I'd come up with off the top of my head. I would say though, two things that to think about medication wise, I would avoid trying to take stimulants for that reason. Because, and that's kind of a common thing that will come up, well, I'm having trouble focusing, what about Adderall? Well, stimulants can definitely cause people with bipolar disorder to rapid cycle, have mixed symptoms, and become unstable. But some people have to take them because they already had ADHD. So, but nonetheless, that's one thing. And then the last thing on this question is, benzodiazepines are used a lot for not only anxiety, but sometimes people will just end up kind of stuck on them to help them sleep. And even if it does help you sleep, which helps your thinking, it does have the net effect of slowing your thinking as far as your problem solving and things, and making you slows your reaction time and things like that. So those are just a few things to think about that way.
Understood. This is a little longer question. You've touched on a little bit of this, but in case there's anything else. Can someone with bipolar disorder be off medication completely when the symptoms are pretty much under control? They continue by saying, my dad is currently on Seroquel and lithium. His doctor is working on reducing the dosage as these meds have side effects. I just want to know if he could be off meds completely since he seems normal now.
I would say it's risky to get off the medicine completely. That would be something that, I've entertained that possibility with some patients where it's been a few years since they had an episode. And so we kind of go down, 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 and just kind of see what happens. So it would be something you would do that he would have to do with his doctor very carefully. Kind of going back to what I was saying about the deprescribing, another option rather than to get off of everything is to get on the bare minimum, just something, just one medication for maintenance. Some of the medications that are FDA approved for mania or depression are not necessarily as good for the maintenance phase. So there are different, the medications work differently for different phases, some better than others. But it is risky to completely get off because bipolar disorder mostly comes back. Don't know when it could come back. He could have an inter-episode period of years. But so it would be something to really carefully watch symptoms of an emerging episode.
Understood. Our next question asks, my young adult son recently suffered his first manic episode. Sorry to hear that, which was very severe, 55 days inpatient. As a parent, what is the most important thing I need to know about how to support my son? Good question.
Yeah.
Your mother or father, whoever, or caregiver. Awesome, Dr. Marks.
Yes, that's a great question. The best question is how do you support your child for them to have the best outcome? And so one of the things is what you're doing now. Get loaded up with education, understanding as much of the illness as you can, recognizing that it is an illness that requires medication. I know we've kind of touched on that and gone back and forth a little bit in this live stream, but now is not the time at the beginning of the illness to look at how can he get off. Right now, it's about getting stable and staying stable and addressing how long he needs to be on medication much later. But right now, it's about getting stable. And so some of the things that you can do to help things better and be better in the future is over time, understanding what are the typical depression symptoms he has, what are the typical manic symptoms he has, what are some triggers so that you can help reduce triggers, what are things. And so you're not going to know all that today. You're not going to know it all in a month, but that's the kind of thing that you kind of watch over time, take note of, so that ideally in some amount of time, it might be a year or two, you and your son can get to the point where you can say, when I become depressed, I experience this, this, and this. When I become manic, I experience this, this, and this. This makes it worse. This makes it better. And just kind of know. And as I say, you're not going to know that right now, but paying attention and writing things down helps kind of be able to anticipate things and know how to respond better to when things change.
Mm-hmm. And I know I'm not the doctor, no one tuned in to get my opinion, but take care of yourself too. Parents really go all in on their children, and then they wake up 5 years later and realize, oh my gosh, in 5 years I haven't thought about myself one time. And that's not a life. Your care is important. And when you are healthy and well and present and mindful, you actually are a better supporter for those in your life. So take care of yourself and get a support system around you if you don't already have that. That's my little 2 cents.
Sure. No, that's 50 cents. That's great.
Yeah, there you go. For females, can ovulation increase chances of hypomania and menstruation with depression?
I'm not so sure about ovulation having a direct effect on triggering a manic episode. Certainly with premenstrual dysphoric disorder that some women can have, wherein prior to menses, they have an uptick in mood instability, whether it be depression and irritability, but it can also be very, you could become very labile, angry, irritable, and then it classically just drops off maybe a day or two after your period starts. And then outside of that, you're fine. So some people can have that on top of having bipolar disorder, such that you, during the time of your period, you just become more emotionally unstable. And that emotional instability can take the form of worsening hypomania, if that's the state that you were kind of already in, or worsening depression.
Got it. MedCircle member asks, what do you recommend for my partner on things to help me when I'm manic or depressed, bipolar 1? He hasn't seen me in an episode yet.
Okay, wait, let me hear that question again. How do I help my partner?
Yeah, so what do you recommend for this person's partner on things the partner can do to help this person when this person is manic or depressed? They indicate they have bipolar 1. Their partner has not seen them in an episode yet.
Okay, so I would say the best thing for your partner also is similar to what I was saying about the mom and the son, is for your partner to be able to understand what the illness is to begin with. A lot of people just don't really understand bipolar disorder, and understand what it looks like for you to, when you're depressed, and what it looks like when you're manic. And then you need to help your partner help you or support you. So for example, when you get depressed, if you're someone who just spends the whole day in the bed and can't get out of the bed, do you want your partner to help you get out of the bed? Or because they're probably going to naturally try and help you, but if that just is going to irritate you or make things worse, you need to let your partner know that. So being able to, when you're not in that state, talk about, okay, when I'm here, this is what I need, so that they can know, all right, now I know what I need to do.
Excellent. Really, really excellent. I've had to do that with my ex. I go, don't try to help this. Bring me a cup of tea and get out of my room, please. Okay.
Go.
So our next question here. I was recently diagnosed with bipolar disorder, rapid cycling, and every night I heard voices, and I suddenly woke up getting headaches, like something was hitting my head. I need to know how to control my mind or pause my mind to think and rethink about right or wrong. They also continue to say that they've been having trouble sleeping. They might even go 3 days without sleeping.
Yeah, so it sounds like you have gotten to the point where you're starting to get psychotic, which can happen with mania. It can also happen in the depressed phase too, by the way. But certainly sleep deprivation, going without sleep, is like lighter fluid on mania. It just ramps it up. So I wouldn't be surprised that 3 days with no sleep, you start losing touch with reality. The treatment for that really is an antipsychotic medication. It's hard. Once you lose the ability to know what's real and what's not real, you can't just talk yourself out of that, because you don't have that kind of perspective. I would not expect also to, if you just slept, and chances are you're not going to be able to sleep on your own, if you just slept, that's going to fix it as well. Now, some people can, if they're just kept safe and things, it can just pass, but it's not good for your brain to be in that state of psychosis untreated like that. So really the way to address it is by talking with your doctor about the episode and taking care of it medication wise. As far as the headache thing, I'm not sure what that's about. People can experience headaches from lack of sleep. Otherwise, I would say you should see your primary care doctor to get a workup for that.
Mm-hmm. MedCircle member asks, I have hypomania and have a hard time telling if I am in a good mood or starting a manic episode. Interesting. What suggestions do you have, Dr. Marks?
That's a great question, because sometimes people particularly with bipolar 2 disorder, you can spend more time depressed than with bipolar 1 disorder. That's kind of one of the characteristics that distinguishes between the two as well, is that with bipolar 2 disorder, you tend to have more depressive episodes. So when you've got somebody who's depressed a lot, when they're not depressed, it can just feel so good. It's like, how do I know that I'm just not How do I know I'm not manic or getting hypomanic now?
Right.
Because I feel so good.
Right.
Hypomania is still problematic. So it's not just I'm happy, it's you're so sped up, again, going back to the speed up thing, that you're still having it will show itself as a problem in some way. Your thoughts may be moving fast. You may be, not everybody gets happy hypomanic. Some people will get irritable hypomanic. So maybe you're snapping at people. But let's say, going back to the happy thing, maybe you're coming up with ideas that just really aren't realistic, and maybe making a lot of bad decisions, but there is a problem. So hypomania is still a problem, even if it doesn't land you in the hospital, versus just being happy and even somewhat grandiose. Oh, I think I'm gonna go do this. Well, if doing that doesn't cause problems, then maybe you're just happy.
Sure. There's a great series that MedCircle has with Kevin Hines. Some of you may have heard of him. He jumped off the, just forgot the name of it, the famous bridge in San Francisco, Golden Gate.
Golden Gate?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Marks. He jumped off, survived, and he tells his story of living with bipolar disorder, suicidal ideation, and overcoming that. It's an incredible story, and we have an in-depth, it's about an hour, a little more than an hour interview with him on that. That's available at medcircle.com. Dr. Marks mentioned the importance of mental health education. A great way to get educated is to go subscribe to Dr. Tracey Marks's YouTube channel. She is a clinical and forensic psychiatrist. She uploads new videos every Wednesday at, I think it's 9 o'clock.
Yes, Eastern time.
Very informative, very calming. When you watch her, you feel good and you're learning. It's a great way to absorb that information. We'll include the links below, or just go to YouTube and type in Dr. Tracey Marks and subscribe. Let's go to our next question. If I can move my mouse here. Can you have extreme mood swings while being on medications? Not full episodes, but extreme mood changes.
Yes, you can have mood changes while on medications, because keep in mind, the medications don't necessarily work 100%, but I mean, they don't keep you from going up and down. So I tell people that the ideal scenario when I'm treating someone is to have you, I'm kind of mathematical in my thinking, but if you think of a sine wave that goes up and down, with bipolar disorder, you go up and down, up and down. I want it to just go a little up and down. So you medicate you to the point where you still have ups, highs, and lows. You don't want to be flatlined. So the expectation is that you are still going to have some level of emotional reactivity even on your medication. Now, you can still have breakthrough symptoms on medication as well. So really it's about, is this a normal, just high and low based on what's going on for the day? Or am I starting to bust through with some either hypomania symptoms, or am I starting to sink into a depression because I have a sustained period of these negative moods? That's what you would look at. Is it sustained, and how bad is it?
Understood. This person asked a few questions, but I think she indicated that she's okay if we don't get to all of them. So I'm going to pick her first two here. This person's asking, are there any jobs you cannot do, careers you cannot pursue, sports, disciplines you cannot practice if you're diagnosed with bipolar? And can you become a psychologist, for example, if you're diagnosed with bipolar?
Well, I have colleagues with bipolar disorder. Whether or not you can do the profession really depends on the profession and their rules, and whether or not they hold it against you. The field of medicine, can put certain restrictions on making sure that, you have to check in. I'm not sure what all they do, but it does get nitpicky with doctors who have a mental disorder to show that they're in treatment, et cetera, and that it's not impairing their patient care. As far as like practically speaking, should I even pursue this type of work or that type of work? I would say that I think that it's probably not a good idea to pursue a type of work that could make your disorder worse, like one that requires you to be awake for 36 hours at a time or on a regular basis. So perhaps like, working as a fireman where you've got go a few days, needing to be awake. Does that mean you can't do that? No, it doesn't mean you can't do that, but it may trigger you or it may make it harder for you to manage your illness. So I wouldn't say to someone, if I were talking to a patient of mine, I wouldn't say to that person, you're limited and you can't do anything. I don't think people should think of it that way. I think you ought to pursue what you want to do, but keep in mind, if it is a kind of career that requires something of you that could make your illness worse, primarily like with the sleep deprivation issue, that you may have to do some extra things to protect yourself when you're doing, during those periods to keep yourself stable. That's really kind of more the perspective, more so than being eliminated from a career because of your illness.
Yeah, and I get a lot of emails from people who come to MedCircle because they were diagnosed with a mental health condition and they wanted to get educated about it. Then they start to realize, oh, I'm really interested in mental health. And then some of those people go, maybe I should do something in this space. And they don't all become psychiatrists, of course, but some of them go into therapy or counseling or they volunteer or whatever. But that lived experience offers a very unique insight into the space. I've had therapists and psychologists and psychiatrists who have no mental health problems that they've told me, at least. And then I've worked with some who go, yeah, I was diagnosed with depression when I was 24 or whatever. And that lived experience offers a unique value proposition, in my opinion, as a patient.
Sure.
Next question. This person asks, can bipolar episodes switch more quickly and become more intense if left untreated?
Yes, they can. We call that the Kindling effect, where untreated episodes can lead to more episodes in the future, getting space where the spaces in between the episodes are less, so they can be more frequent and be harder to treat. So you start out, it responds well to this one medication, but then you go a couple of episodes of not getting it treated, it goes away by itself. But then after a while, you start becoming less responsive to multiple medications type of thing.
Yes. This person asks, can Dr. Marks explain what mixed bipolar, specifically bipolar 2 episodes might look like in more detail? I bet she can. Dr. Marks.
Yes. So mixed episodes are where you have a mixture of both depressive episodes and manic episodes occurring at the same time. And I forget the exact cutoff. It might be like two of depression and 2 manic, something like that. But let's go back to the hypomania as the question was posed. So it could look like a person who is probably, let's say your normal amount of sleep is 7 hours, where you might only be sleeping 4 or 5 hours, and yet you're feeling like, instead of feeling on top of the world and you want to do this and that and the other, you start feeling very down on yourself and low, maybe even tearful. You may even feel aggravated and agitated and angry. Maybe even have suicidal thoughts. So it's this, it's kind of like being low, but at the same time being shaken up and sped up. Some people have called it wired but tired. So you may, and I mentioned you might be sleeping less, but you might not. You might be having trouble getting out of bed. but yet your mind is spinning and racing and you can't like put thoughts together because you just feel like you're all over the place. And you're making poor decisions because of the poor judgment thing that you can have, or just making really quick decisions, because hypomania comes with impulsivity as well. And they're quick, bad, sad decisions.
Yes, understood. Can people with bipolar type 2 experience dissociate? And if they do, what is that like?
So people with bipolar disorder can dissociate, with dissociation being kind of a break from reality, not in the sense of psychosis where you don't know what's real and what's not real, but it's like a lesser degree of change in like experiencing your real state. I'm not explaining this very well, but so some examples could be what's called derealization, where you don't feel like you're in your body. So sometimes people will say, I feel like I'm observing myself. That's depersonalization. Derealization. So depersonalization is kind of a break from reality with yourself. Derealization is like disconnection from your environment. So you may feel like you're walking around in a dream, or the colors might seem muted. I've had people tell me that before, or that just things just don't seem real around you. It's not a symptom of bipolar disorder. Some people can experience that as part of an episode of either depression or hypomania, or not in an episode, because it is its own entity. So it's one of those things, dissociative states or depersonalization, derealization, that people can have independent of bipolar disorder. So you can have both. It can be that being in an episode can kind of trigger that as a reaction. So maybe you're more prone to have a dissociation or dissociated state, and your mania or your depression kind of makes it worse or triggers it. That's kind of the best way I could see kind of fitting the two together. But it's not as though everyone with bipolar disorder will dissociate, but some people do. And people with anxiety can also experience it as well.
I want to get this question in, Dr. Marks. Is there a big difference of getting bipolar disorder as an adult or as a child? Is there some learned behaviors that come with being an adult as well?
So going back to the kindling effect that I was mentioning before, of untreated episodes can make things worse, or future episodes worse. Similarly, the earlier that you develop the episode kind of gives you a head start on the episode developing, I guess. And so people who where it becomes crystal clear that they have mania and hypomania or bipolar disorder as a child, means that they have more years to have it be a problem. And over time, those are.
Oh, looks like we froze a little bit, or at least we did on my end.
Am I still here now?
You're back.
I'm back.
You're
Okay.
here.
Okay. So the 30 or 40-year-old person who has been living with bipolar disorder, say for 20 years, can look different as far as their disorder being a little bit more severe and harder to treat than someone who their first episode was at 25 and now they're 35. As far as learned behaviors, I think that everyone has different coping styles. And so that kind of gets complicated as to the things that influence how you react to life, to stress, to things that affect you negatively, and how you cope with those things, your degree of resilience and all of those things. And how you're raised and your temperament, and all that play into that. So I think I wouldn't say that people who develop bipolar disorder early have a certain set of coping strategies, because that is a more personalized, temperament-based type of thing.
Right. Yes, understood. Dr. Marks, we truly could talk all day about this. We've had hundreds of questions come in, and we've got through as many as possible. What have we not talked about today when it comes to bipolar disorder that you want everybody to know?
Wow. A day's worth of information that I could go through. I guess what I would want people to know is that bipolar disorder can be a difficult illness, but it also can be treated. You can still live a good life. It doesn't have to mean that this is the end now for you. And so really the key is education and treatment. And treatment doesn't have to mean pills. So you can be connected with a doctor and go for a period of time, perhaps without medication, but still be connected with the doctor, so that if something starts to change for you, you all can make the appropriate decisions. So the best thing to do is prevention, as far as addressing things from a health perspective, with diet, exercise, sleep hygiene, all of those things, and taking good care of yourself so that you can have the best course and the best outcome possible. And so you can live well still with bipolar disorder.
You absolutely can. And our founder, Doug Colbeth, has bipolar disorder. He was diagnosed later in life. He's a very successful man. He's married with kids. He just has a new granddaughter. He has a wonderful life. And it's because he finally got educated on his bipolar disorder and finally got the treatment that works for him. And it's a very inspiring story. And that's really what motivated him to start MedCircle many years ago. Was, I worked in a world where having any mental health condition was stigmatized because people didn't know about it. And he wanted to change that. And how we're doing that is through MedCircle. Dr. Marks, thank you. I know we went a little over that 11 o'clock. I know you have a busy day. Thank you for being here. Where else can people find you?
Well, other than my YouTube channel, which is Dr. Tracey Marks, I also have my website is markspsychiatry.com.
Yeah. And you have a great Twitter too. I was perusing it this morning. You have a Twitter, right?
I do. I'm not that active on it though, but yeah, it's there.
I was like, or you have an imposter, one of the two.
Yeah, I gotta go look at that.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Marks. Make sure you follow her. We'll include those links below. If you want to hang around, I'm going to give viewers an inside look into the back end of MedCircle. Also provide a discount code for those who are interested. But otherwise, Dr. Marks, thank you for being here. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. I enjoyed it. Good to see you.
Awesome.
Okay, bye-bye.
So thank you. I've been reading the chat, everybody, and thank you. It's really great. I'm going to share my screen right now, or as soon as Bridget gives me access, and I will go ahead and show you exactly what is included in a MedCircle membership in case you're interested. Now we have lots of discounts as well for healthcare workers and students and teachers and whatever it is that whatever it is you could possibly be involved in. We probably have a discount for it. So if you think you qualify for a discount, email support@medcircle.com and they will get you set up on your discounted membership. Right here, I'm showing you our video library. So this is filled with in-depth video interviews from doctors, patients, and experts all on mental health. You can see that we've categorized it by topic. But sometimes people join MedCircle because they fell in love with a specific doctor. So you might have just fallen in love with Dr. Tracey Marks, and then you want to go see more videos from her. You can do that by scrolling to the bottom of this page where we have our videos categorized by doctor. So here's Dr. Ramani, for example. If you click on Dr. Ramani, it'll show you all of the videos from Dr. Ramani. There's a search option as well on this page. So like, if you guys are interested in narcissism and you can actually spell narcissism, not like me who can't spell it, it'll pull up any videos related to that keyword. So spend some time on this to explore and see if there are any videos that you like. Here, all of the classes, just like the one you watched, will be loaded right up here for you to watch the replay. So this one will be eventually in that library. We also have these free series right here. These are great to watch. You don't have to log in. You don't have to provide an email. They're just free, commercial free. And these are also great to send to people since they're not behind any paywall or anything like that. I wish this would. There we go. Fine. And then after that, we have our live classes. So our live classes are like the ones you just attended. However, 98% of our classes are for MedCircle members only. The reason we do that is because like today, we got hundreds of questions. There was no way we could get through all of them. We try to keep our member only sessions more intimate, smaller, and they're also longer. They go for typically 90 minutes. So you can have more of an interaction with our speaker. But here's where you can see upcoming classes, another special event we've got coming. Oh, these just got updated, yay. So all of these are coming and you can register for them. And if you are a MedCircle member, it's included in your membership, of course, and you will be guaranteed a seat. And at the end of this, I'll give everyone who's listening a code so they can start their trial and get a discount. Finally, we have an app. It's available in any app store for any device. The app is really cool, obviously, because you can watch on the go, but you can also download videos and save them for later. So if you're traveling or in a place without internet, you can still access that content. It also tracks your watch history. There's a lot of customization. It's free to download. It does come with some free series and resources. But if you start your membership, you'll have full access to the app, which is great. Of course, you can also go to medcircle.com and offer and get all of our free resources as well. We have a very robust YouTube channel that we update each week. We also have a really great blog that I'm really proud of. I work on this every week, all the time. I don't write the content. We have a team of therapists, psychologists, and psychiatrists who produce this type of content. But it's all free. It's all great. And even when you come in here and you click on one of these, it's not just words. We have lots of videos to accompany that so that you can really get an education on whatever topic it is you're searching for. If you go to the sign up button, or Bridget will include a link in this chat, you can sign up here, choose a monthly membership and click the promo code and then type in "I got this 25, and it should give you a discount on your first month. You'll get your first week is free, no obligation. And then after the week, your first month will be at 25% off. If you're already in and I want the information, I want the education, the best deal is to do an annual option. It's $120 paid up front. It's good for 12 months. And you can also gift this to people. Over the holidays, we had a lot of people gift their friends, family, children, 1 or up to 12 months of access to MedCircle. So that's an option. If it's not for you, perhaps it's for somebody else. Are there any questions about that? I'm going to go to the group chat, if I can stop sharing this, in the Zoom, and we'll see if there's any questions. Those are in US dollars, correct? Yeah. And if you do have if you're a healthcare worker, a student, a teacher, a professional, a member of the military, we have discounts for you as well. Just email support@medcircle.com and Mandy, our member advocate, will get that set up for you. Cool. Are there any other questions? Let's see. How much information is there on bipolar disorder? We have a series. The discounts are only available for monthly payments. I will answer all these questions. And that's not on us. It's a thing with the system. We would love to be able to discount an annual membership, but the system does not allow us to do that right now. Oh, no. Girl, we got you. It includes military spouses, well, or only activity, everybody, all of them. Yes, just email me. We'll get you set up. The discounts are only valid for monthly. Oh, how much bipolar information? So we have a series on bipolar with Dr. Dominic Sportelli. We have some live classes on this subject as well, but you can go to watch.medcircle.com and view all the information. We're not trying to hide any of it from you, or just try it out for a week. And then if you think, I don't want to do this, then you can cancel and you're not out any money and there's no obligation. Awesome, cool. Yay, from India, yay, hi. Retired nurses, absolutely. Send us an email, support@medcircle.com. We'd love to get you set up. Oh yeah, we do. So we have a great series on ketamine treatment for treatment-resistant depression. We also have I actually got a ketamine treatment for a docu-series we did. We have that video available on YouTube. However, if you type in "what's working show ketamine," it should come up. Otherwise, go to watch.medcircle.com for the actual series on ketamine. It's very informative. Is this webinar available to rewatch? It will be at watch.medcircle.com. Does MedCircle provide continuing education credits for mental health professionals? We do not at this time. Do you provide internships too? We do not at this time. I think I'm going to sign up, watching from London. Well, we would love to have you. All right, good. I think those are all the questions. If you have more questions, ask me, Kyle@medcircle.com, email support@medcircle.com, but go give us a shot for a week. This mental health education is incredibly powerful. You already understand that because you registered for a mental health education live event. So I know that you understand that. What you may not understand is how profound this education is. It's not treatment, it's not therapy, but I was diagnosed with depression when I was 9. I was in treatment and therapy and medicated since I was 9 until present day, but it wasn't until I was 31 that I even learned what cognitive behavioral therapy was. It wasn't until I was 31 and joined MedCircle that I learned I am not my thoughts. I learned the concepts of acceptance and commitment therapy and how I can apply those ideas to my own life, how I can better manage my negative self-talk. It wasn't until I joined MedCircle that I actually learned how to support my friends who struggle with depression or anxiety, or how to talk to somebody with a personality disorder, or how to actually interact with a coworker who might be a little manic or in a depressive state. This education has far-reaching implications that make your life easier. That's what I have found. It has made my life easier. So give us a shot for 7 days and see if your life can be a little easier with the right education. I'm Kyle Kittleson, and remember, whatever you're going through, you got this.